This is one of the most terrifying crime films ever made, and I'll prove it through a single sequence analysis. First, some context. Cure is a Japanese crime movie released in 1997 and directed by Kiyoshi Kurosawa, considered part of the J-horror boom, which also includes filmmakers such as Hideo Nakata, known for Ringu, and Takashi Miike, known for Audition. After the burst of Japan's economic bubble in 1991, the country fell into recession. Since then, the Japanese public started to lose faith in their modern institutions. Inspired by American genre films, but also by the radical aesthetics of European and Japanese auteurs, like Robert Bresson, Andrei Tarkovsky, or Ozu Yasujiro, Kurosawa set out to make a small-budget crime film that would go down in cinema history as the pinnacle of atmospheric horror. Let's take a look at the scene introducing the main antagonist, the equivalent of the serial killer in this genre. On paper, this scene follows a very conventional narrative trope. In many crime thrillers, we get an unrestricted range of narration to help maintain the tension. That is, we are not solely limited to the detective's point of view, but we get glimpses of the victim's encounters with the murderer. However, this film takes this narrative device to a whole new level, as we spend as much time with the antagonist's various encounters throughout the film as we do with the detective. This gives us a wider perspective, presenting it as a story of modern Japanese society rather than an individual one. This sequence is the perfect example, paralleling the murder scene with the detective's private life to highlight a connection between the two. The sequence opens on this landscape shot of the beach. The audience is thrown off guard right away, as every scene has been set in claustrophobic urban spaces. This is the polar opposite, a wide open space with little sign of civilization. Although this is a real location, the foggy sky and colorless sand make it abstract, out of time and place. This compels viewers to find metaphysical meaning in the scene while remaining grounded in reality. This ambiguity fosters a sense of mystery. We realize this was a point of view shot when we see this teacher looking in the distance. We cut back to the previous shot, but this time, a man is standing among the desolated landscape. His coat is the same color as the sand. It looks as though he emerged from that landscape. Kurosawa plays with the illusion of continuity in editing to create an uncanny character introduction. It is physically impossible, in the brief moment we cut away from this shot, for a man to walk right in the middle of it. As a result, we get the impression that he just appeared by magic, yet we don't see it happening on screen. Kurosawa purposefully maintains ambiguity, pushing viewers into a position of unease as they wonder whether this feels wrong. The soundscape mirrors this strategy. Notice the sound of the waves crashing in the distance. As we get used to them, we stop paying attention, yet they subconsciously shape our experience of the scene. While we're unaware, Kurosawa subtly introduces an eerie drone replacing the sound of the waves. Once again, we don't notice the trick as we feel it was justified by the sound of the waves. Yet the drone fosters a sense of unease. Viewers feel something is not right with this individual, but cannot pinpoint why. Kurosawa brings us back to reality, as the sound of the waves comes back and we get a clearer view of the ocean, with a little more civilization. However, this individual seems at odds with it. He just emerged from an abstract world, has no sense of identity, time, or place. The following tracking shot is an implicit game of cat and mouse. We suspect the mysterious individual is connected to the gruesome murders, and this teacher could be the next victim. Kurosawa, however, refuses to dramatize the scene, keeping the audience distant from it all. As a result, it looks less like a chase between a killer and a victim, and more like a random everyday encounter. In a sense, this is more terrifying, since it implies anyone could be a threat. The wide shot prevents viewers from identifying the individual's face, thus keeping him as an abstraction standing in for any stranger we may encounter. We are now back to civilization with this portrait of the 90s Japanese domestic space. The housewife is helping the husband pour coffee in the kitchen, which looks generic and impersonal. The lack of distinct identity indicates this couple could be anyone. Many Japanese viewers of the time could project themselves onto these figures, which will make the following events all the more terrifying. Mamiya points out the rumbling sound of the waves in the background, directing viewers' ears to it. This reminds them that, despite returning to a more familiar setting, there is still a threat lurking in the background. Cinematographer Tokusho Kikumura also plays with lighting contrast in this scene. While husband and wife are brightly lit, he switches to low-key lighting with Mamiya, highlighting how little we know about him.
ここに間宮と書いてあります。これがあなたの名前なんでしょうか？知らない。
This insert shot is typical of crime films, used to highlight details important to the investigation. Here, it tells us that this man's identity is relevant to the series of crimes that have been happening. Also, the use of the color red is not random. It signals a potential danger and is often associated with blood in the crime genre.
いいよそれで。俺の名前は間宮。多分そうなんでしょう。警察に捜索願いが出てるかもしれませんね。やだな、警察は。どうしてです？
If viewers weren't already highly suspicious of Mamiya, Kurosawa makes sure they are with this simple blocking trick. Mamiya moves towards the camera so that viewers can, for the very first time, see his face in detail, while the teacher completely loses access to him as he is left out of focus. That, and the dialogue on the police, tell us the teacher is in danger and he doesn't even know it. The tension builds up from this moment. As he goes off screen, we lose access to him, and thus starts to anticipate what's coming. In the horror genre, nothing builds anticipation better than a long take since the action unfolds in real time. The use of a long lens helps make this pan feel longer, as the camera covers much less space. We have a very restrained perspective, and thus feel more vulnerable to what is possibly hidden off screen. However, Kurosawa doesn't pay it off with a shocking reveal, which often releases the tension. Instead, he keeps the anticipation going. Here, the teacher is staged as an observer, out of focus. We are aligned with his perspective. The frame within a frame reminds viewers that these two come from different worlds. They're strangers to each other, not friends. Mamiya, sitting in darkness, highlights how little we know about him. In Kurosawa's films, fear always comes from the unknown. The soundscape has been stripped to the bare minimum. There's no score, and even the waves are barely audible.
誰が？間宮さん。間宮さん。誰？あなたのことですよ、間宮さん。
This makes room for this abrupt sound to startle the audience. Although it has a relatively similar effect to a jump scare, it doesn't come off as a cheap trick. Not only is the sound mix grounded, as the fall doesn't seem louder than it would normally be in real life, but also, it happens right in front of our eyes. We were just surprised because we couldn't clearly see it. Kurosawa is playing with us again, as we believe it's our fault for getting startled by something so ordinary, though it was actually part of the filmmaker's intention. As a way to enhance this atmosphere of unease, the teacher turns the light on to signal he wants to uncover Mamiya's identity. He walks into the same frame, entering his space, suggesting he no longer considers Mamiya a stranger, although he should. Mamiya turns off the lights, indicating he doesn't wish to reveal more about himself.
誰が？僕の妻です。ああ。ピンクのネグリジェの女か。してたんですか。
The first cut after a long take always has a strong impact. Here, we cut to a medium shot of the teacher to highlight his shock. The sound of the waves comes back at the forefront of the mix.
してたんですか?
The situation has escalated. We sense that Mamiya is closing in on the teacher.
あんただ.
This flame appears so fast, it's impossible that Mamiya had time to pull out a lighter. This makes it seem like it appeared out of nowhere. The flame becomes an abstract visual to suggest a dangerous thought. Then the shot of the cigarette confirms it really was a flame from a lighter, grounding it in reality. Kurosawa keeps teasing viewers by suggesting surrealism ever so slightly, leaving them in this constant state of uncertainty. He does the same with the sound design. The sound of the lighter turning on blends into a surreal drone, which fosters an atmosphere of unease. This is an effective alternative to music, as it shapes viewers' emotions, while not drawing attention to itself. Finally, we cut to close-up shots as we delve deeper into the character's psyche. For the first time in the sequence, the character's eye line becomes accessible to the audience. The teacher almost looks into the lens, involving viewers directly. It is common practice for performers to avoid looking into the camera as it can make viewers uncomfortable by breaking the fourth wall. Here, this feeling of unease is intended by Kurosawa, as we get direct connection to the character's soul. A radical break from the earlier wide shots. Mamiya, who's always had an avoidant eyeline, indicating he was lost, is now looking straight ahead close to the lens. This shows us he is now fully in control. The scene is left open-ended, with Mamiya closing his grip on his victim. Cutting to the next scene before resolving the previous one is a common technique for maintaining tension. But what makes this film so impactful is that it doesn't treat each scene as individual snippets. They are all thematically connected and structured to prompt specific thoughts in the audience's minds. We cut to a wide shot in front of a dry cleaner. The characters are not only small in the frame, but also turning their backs to us. We can assume this character is the detective because of the suitcase, although it could also have been Mamiya, as they wear a similar coat. This slight uncertainty in identifying the characters blurs the line between the detective's world and Mamiya's. Shortly afterwards, we cut to the inside of an apartment. Kurosawa purposefully starts this shot earlier than necessary, so we have time to ask ourselves the same question. It could be the detective coming home, but it could also be Mamiya, the teacher, or even the man who just left the dry cleaner. The background drone fosters an atmospheric unease, echoing the hypnotizing flame of the previous scene. This encourages viewers to see this scene as a continuation of the previous one, maintaining the tension. This is the equivalent of the cigarette shot, as it shows us this ominous drone was actually grounded in the real world. Furthermore, the washing machine being completely empty suggests that the detective's wife is not well. With this idea in mind, we view the following scene. On the surface, a normal exchange between husband and wife, as completely performative. We know something is going on behind the scenes. Kurosawa reinforces this suspicion with the sterile set design, a generic apartment looking like a TV set. The large curtains in the background echo the idea of a staged play. Also, the floating camera, which sometimes anticipates the character's movements, makes the scene feel rehearsed. The color palette feels too harmonious. The couple's clothes match both each other and the curtains. However, this pale green may indicate a sickness permeating the household. The scene ends with the low drone sound of the washing machine. This sound tells the audience everything they need to know about his wife's condition, and his reaction shows he's starting to lose patience. It isn't only a storytelling device, it also shapes viewers' emotions. We feel something ominous is about to happen. Here, Kurosawa's structural editing strategy pays off. For a moment, the audience wonders who was that person thrown out the window. The cut from the detective's reaction to this event directly connects the two in the audience's minds. Yet soon enough, they realize this was actually the continuation from the previous scene with Mamiya. Although viewers are eager to understand what just happened, Kurosawa slowly unveils the scene piece by piece, leaving it up to them to reconstruct the crime in their heads. We've arrived too late. Although we had full unrestricted range of narration beforehand, we're now back in the detective's shoes trying to figure out what happened. The genius of this sequence lies in its editing structure. At first, one would think that cutting from this moment to this one makes the most sense since it keeps the momentum of the murder scene. However, inserting the detective's domestic life in between the two allows for greater narrative opportunities. Kurosawa parallels two seemingly unrelated stories. Both feature a couple living in a generic apartment. They seem to get along on the surface, but who knows how they really feel toward each other. Kurosawa prompts viewers to think that the detective could have been the one to kill his wife. In fact, his implied frustration could be read as justification for the teacher's actions toward his own wife. This scene plays a key role in shifting the teacher's role from victim to perpetrator, whereas a direct cut would have clearly framed Mamiya as the sole cause of the crime. Kurosawa's intent is not to make a film about a deranged serial killer, but about an existential disease permeating modern society, affecting everyone, including the detective investigating it. Mamiya merely awakens something that already exists, an alienation Kurosawa never fully reveals. It's left to the viewer to interpret. In most crime films, killers are caught through investigation and reasoning. Here, the cause of evil cannot be understood. The subconscious escapes reason, which we've elevated above all else in modern society. As we watch, we can't help but feel that some things don't add up, as editing and sound design transcend reality, yet we still firmly believe in its grounded police procedural. This contradiction challenges our reason, and without reason, what are we but animals subjected to the most barbaric instincts? That is why Cure is one of the most terrifying crime films ever made. There are so many works I'd like to explore with you, so if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe. If there are any films, TV shows, or video games you'd like me to check out, drop them in the comments below. I'll pick one to include in future analysis. See you in the next one.
よく殺人事件などが起きて、テレビのニュースなどでその犯人が捕まってですね、その犯人の、友人とか隣に住んでる人とかをインタビューすると、大抵まさかあの人が丁寧な人でしたよ、みたいな取材がよくあるんですね。でそういう時大体報道されるのは良きお父さん、丁寧な人、礼儀正しい人のふりをした、それ仮面をかぶった実は恐ろしい殺人鬼だったっていう、本当にそうなのかなと、本当に優しい、いいお父さん、礼儀正しい人、丁寧な人が突如人を殺すことってあるよねっていう、っていうのが、このキュアの作る、その一つのそういうきっかけになっていますと、これ取材でよくそう答えるんですけど、これ後付けなんですよ。